I truly believe that most humans have a hard time. It's challenging for them to truly contextualize appropriately in their mind the nature of the enemy that we face. Imagine an enemy that the victims of that enemy, so to speak, literally, quite literally, had a hard time contextualizing in their own minds that the enemy that they face could actually be as evil as it is, which basically means they can't believe it. They don't believe it, and they damn sure don't know it. So in a lot of ways, they're stuck somewhere between an opinion, what they think, and a belief that they don't even have regarding their proper understanding, or any true understanding, of who or what their enemy is, properly contextualize in their own minds the level of evil that it's capable of and willing to levy upon them. But since it hasn't been levied upon them, they don't have the ability to believe it. And I don't understand what goes on in the mind that prevents that. I suppose since everyone lives in their own bubble, and the most violence most people will experience is going to be, a few fights in their life if they're guys. I guess if you go to war, you get to see the underbelly of humans. But in our little microcosms, we don't actually see the true gravity, the scope, the scale of the enemy's reach, and what it is they do in places that we don't see, that reveal what they truly are. And in order to have a better understanding of that, you actually have to put in the time. Because those that know, what they will tell you is going to be so over the top in comparison to anything that you have the ability to contextualize as legitimately happening in your own mind. It's going to seem too outlandish. It's going to seem too over the top. It's going to seem too, no, that couldn't be true. There's no way. No. People have a hard time truly believing the level of evil that their enemy, that they don't even realize what it is. I don't think they realize the level of evil that it's capable of doing. The low-down, underhanded shit that you would never suspect. That's the thing. Things that you would never suspect. Especially in a world where your world has been relatively calm, decent. You've lived a life in, for instance, America or Canada or certain places within Europe and Australia, and life was relatively, I guess you could say, in quotes, normal. So through all of our normal lives, short of maybe going to war and seeing some of those atrocities, most people are never exposed to that level of, violence or evil or genocidal killing. So there again, most people, I think, have a hard time contextualizing that shit is actually real because they've never seen it. They've only heard about it. And it happened to a group of people they didn't know in a country they've never been to, across an ocean or two. What they don't realize is the people that have done those things, some of them are the ones that are in control of the whole world. And unless you've gone down some really unpleasant rabbit holes to see what humans are willing to do to each other, from the jungles of various countries to the streets of various cities, you got to have the stomach for it. And there are websites where you can see. People seem to want to record shit that will drop you to a knee vomiting. And I'm a grown-ass, fairly strong individual when it comes to my stomach strength. And the shit that you can see on some of these websites will cause you some serious fucking pause. And until you see it, in the example I'm giving, albeit over the internet, but it's a real video that some person took with their cell phone while this horrible fucking thing was happening, that is so horrible you should never even think about it, let alone do it or film it, then take the time to upload it to the internet so the world can see how fucking abominable evil truly is. I mean, holy shit. So unless or until you've been exposed to it, unless or until you've gone down the rabbit holes and dug it up and looked so you could get a sense, it's almost impossible for most people to believe or to conceive or to even contextualize in their mind the level of evil that actually runs the planet and what it's doing, what it has done, and what it's willing to do. And at some point, when it sets its sights on you, your country, your area, your region, it's going to fucking do the most evil and horrible shit that you've only heard about happening in other countries a couple of oceans away with people that you've never known or heard or seen or experienced, people you don't know, far, far, far away. When that shit comes to you, unfortunately, only then will you truly understand the enemy that you truly face. I mean, I think the best way to say it, or one of the better ways of saying it, is imagine the devil incarnated in all of the ways that you could conceive the proverbial devil. how diabolical and evil the devil would be, and that there's nothing that the devil wouldn't do. No, but since it seems to be like fairy tale, this religious myth of the big bad devil, most people don't think about this shit. Think through on this shit. But if you were to actually take the time and say, what would the devil do? How would it would lie, deceive, cheat, steal, everything that you could possibly fucking imagine, every low that you could conceive of or not conceive of, shit you couldn't think of, the devil would do, right? And the devil is in quotes here, but that archetype incarnated with power. Sit and think to yourself in every way that you could possibly imagine it, as hard as it would be to get your mind to go into those places of spaces of trying to contextualize this, because you don't think that way. So it's kind of foreign to you. You see what I'm saying? But try and think of, quote unquote, what the devil would do if he wanted to thin the population, control everything. I mean, think transhumanism. Think of the way this tech is going. Think of the mind control. Think of, I mean, there's just so many things that you could think of that are within the purview of your awareness to contextualize. Now you got to contemplate a level of evil that starts to exceed outside of what you could initially contextualize, and realize that there is no low that it won't go to, no horror it wouldn't impose, no sickening thing it wouldn't do, no underhanded thing it wouldn't do. Now add in a whole bunch of chaos and murderous intent and stir. Now envision that controlling the world, but knowing that it can't do too much too fast in too many places, so that it doesn't wake up the sleeping giant, so to speak, called mankind. Therefore, through the most underhanded, deceitful, backhanded, lying, cheating, and all of that, doing the most horrible atrocities. Think mad scientist. Think evil warlord. Combine that shit together. What do you get? Once you start to envision this shit, you got to start to realize that the enemy that we face as mankind is, in fact, that. And all you got to do is spend the time looking at the landscape of the world that you can figure out. Even if when you open your door, all you hear is crickets. You live in a big world with an awful lot of shit going on. I mean, we have an enemy that's willing to, and has, and does it right in front of our faces in a lot of respects. And poison the air, poison the food, poison the water. And they've convinced the population that their poisoning of the water is good for them and good for their teeth. And they've got public excuses for why they've poisoned the food, and that it's safe to eat. And they've got public excuses for why they do the trails in the sky that blanket the earth with, things. And their public excuses to reflect the sun's radiation away from the earth, because blah, 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 blah. They come up with all kinds of fancy, scientifical, fancy worded excuses, and most people buy this shit. Now, if you can contextualize an enemy that you don't necessarily realize is there among, and then this enemy has, we'll call it soldiers and scouts and all that other shit, writ throughout the entirety of the motherfucking world. In the context of this enemy of the quote-unquote devil, when you're imagining how evil it would possibly be, well, it would also probably have lots of resources and be connected everywhere, have every advantage it could, and then take advantage of every disadvantage that you had going for you. The kind of enemy that's so evil and diabolical that it'll start killing you and then try to propagandize you into believing that it's your fault that it's doing this to you, and that it's sorry, but it's your fault, as it's slaughtering your people in front of your face. And since you don't know what to make of it, you don't do anything or act. And since through the chemical assault they've put everybody under, men have been emasculated to the point where they're not even sure how to be men anymore. In the face of an enemy that's the most evil, diabolical fucking thing any of our minds could conceive. And then realize that that quote-unquote devil, it has boots on the ground. They're real living humans. They quite literally behave like that. They do those things. They bring those things to pass. They make them happen. They're happening all over the world. And they're happening right in front of our faces. And the world still doesn't get it. I mean, when you think about it, would the devil sacrifice children and do horrible things to children? Yeah. Would the devil poison water? Yeah. Food, air, stoop to no lows, take advantage of your every disadvantage, take advantage of every weakness it knew that you had? And an interesting thing is, this supposed devil, this devil I'm talking about, it knows everything it needs to know about you. But you don't even know that, and I'm not talking in a religious context. I'm talking just the archetypal big bad devil. You really don't believe that it actually exists in the way that the stories might tell us. But in fact it does. And since you don't know about it, since you haven't truly aligned with these things, therefore you don't know, you're not motivated to take action. There's a psychological barrier or block or some sort of mental block. Perhaps it's a a spell that has been cast upon the minds of mankind that would allow the entirety of mankind, more or less, to not even recognize the enemy that's standing in front of their face, doing all the things the enemy does to the victim right in front of your face, and then the enemy just stands in a fucking daze, unaware of what it's seeing. Because somewhere, the pain hasn't registered. The suffering hasn't registered. When the devil does the things that the devil does in slow, incremental ways that are virtually, but not completely, but virtually imperceptible to the grand whole of the people, because of the way it does it, and it knows that people's short attention spans of a few weeks, within a few weeks they'll forget. They'll get back to their lives. They'll be glad that horrible thing or those horrible things didn't happen to them, and they'll just want the world to go back to the normal that they knew it to be, so they can get on with their normal lives. So, as I opened with, when you don't recognize evil, when you don't understand it because you can't properly contextualize the true gravity of what it is and that it actually truly lives and exists, you are doomed. The sad thing is some of us do. Some of us do recognize this, and we can't get through to the people who don't. And a lot of the platforms that control the flow of information won't let you openly talk about the enemy. You can talk about everybody else, but you can't talk about the enemy of mankind, hardcore, open, and freely speak. And to understand that enemy takes a long time, and you have to break through a lot of belief barriers in your mind that the enemy has actually put in your mind about them while you were developing, and they've done it in subtle ways throughout the entirety of your life. So you have a particular view of who your enemy is that won't even allow you to see your enemy as your enemy. You really got to sit with that and contemplate what I just said. What do you think will happen to you if you don't recognize an enemy? What do you think your fate will be if you do not recognize your enemy? It's going to be death or fucking subjugation. I mean, it's gotten so bad that everybody that's evil or corruptible is working for the fucking enemy. It's everywhere. And if you can't recognize your enemy, and you get butthurt and have like triggered emotionally driven responses when someone tries to point out your enemy because they're way a fucking ahead of you in the goddamn, game of figuring this shit out? Well, that puts you at a severe disadvantage now, doesn't it? And the other thing is the enemy has divided us in a way that most people don't realize. Yeah, some people may. That one's not that hard to observe, even for normies. The political divide, the religious divide. These are ideologies that run deep in the hearts of man and woman. And they're two things that men will kill for. Their religious ideological beliefs and their political ideological beliefs. And the enemy that most people don't even realize exists or is here and functioning and operating in the ways that it does controls both of those things. They're the predominant influencers. Clearly not the only one, but religious influence and ideological propaganda, religious propaganda, and the ideologies that come forth from all that indoctrination and shit. Whew, yeah, deep. Same with politics. People will kill you over their politics, or it creates severe divides. Think of the left versus the right in America, and look at how different the two camps are. Both sides equally as corruptible, and look at what we have. I mean, the art of war. But most people don't care about the art of war, because it's some book that some Asian guy wrote thousands of years ago, so why would it matter? Well, it's mandatory reading in the Army War College and those other military type schools. Perhaps even some Ivy League schools, depending on the classes that you take. But what you get an understanding of is your enemy, be he or she big or small, powerful, not so powerful, whatever your enemy is. There's principles that Sun Tzu explains about studying your enemy. Studying your enemy, you have to understand who your enemy is. You have to understand how your enemy operates. You have to understand its psychology to the best of your ability. Because if you do not understand your enemy, and you don't understand how they operate, and then you don't understand what they're going to be willing to do based off of what you've figured out about the way they operate. See what I'm saying? If you don't know your enemy, you're fucked. You're at the biggest disadvantage you could be at against an enemy that understands everything it needs to know about you and how to program your mind, influence you, pull your fucking strings. Seriously. Sun Tzu goes on to explain, strategies and techniques for going against a bigger enemy when you are small. Yeah, how to strategize against a bigger opponent. And see, what we don't collectively understand is that our enemy, they're master tacticians in ways that most people would never even think about. Most people don't realize that there's master tacticians that are working against them in the very reality that they live in, because in the little bubble of their existence, they can get up, go to work, pay their bills, pay their taxes, raise their kids, and go out and, go on the boat or, go to the ball game or whatever. They don't realize what the master tacticians have always been doing right underneath their noses, and that the enemy is operating very much right around them all the time. And a good analogy for this is consider what was depicted in the movie They Live. Before that signal went down, everybody thought that everybody around them was just another version of human and that we were all going about our daily lives. However, it was very oppressive and it was very oppressive in the movie, even when nobody could figure out who other people were. It wasn't until the signal was destroyed you could get a visual depiction of how embedded the fucking enemy was. And then you can quickly look back and see how embedded it was at every layer of their society, and that the people that they thought were human weren't necessarily human. And in a similar way, this devil I've been talking about, in this 50-50 physical, non-physical reality that we exist in, can, through these non-physical means and ways, manipulate any of us, well, a lot of us, through non-physical means, because we don't have the senses to perceive it. Therefore, this devil force, using ways and means that you would never even think, can pull the strings of people that you would never even suspect. And before you know it, shit can go crazy. People can turn on you, whether in the moment or permanently. Now, when you think of this devil I'm referring to from the perspective of the non-physical, it's kind of hard to contextualize it, because it's really hard to contextualize that we are completely being attacked in that way. But when you take that devil and how you think it would operate, and then look at the world and realize that there's groups of people that are actually doing these things, that this proverbial devil actually has boots on the ground that are shameless, conscienceless. Is that a word? To have a conscience? They're conscienceless. What's the word for that? Moralless, fucking, all of those words. Therefore, you really have to visualize an enemy that will stoop to no low, and that there are many of them, and that they're embedded all through our fucking world, just like they showed us in They Live. And one of the strategies that they've used that has been one of the most heinous against us is their intimate, deep knowledge and understanding of how the human operates. And since they control all the mechanisms of influence of the human mind, and they control all the things that pervert the human mind, well, since we've grown up in their world where they've gotten our parents to get on the hamster wheel, where they're not raising us in the ways that and imbuing into us like values and shit the way that they used to be done, this enemy has been able to influence the minds of, well, every generation that walks among the earth, or walks among us upon the earth right now. And the enemy's been able to put the minds of man in the condition that they want them in, impotent like a flaccid dick, as evidenced by the last 4 years, and nobody's even been tried, let alone hung, shot, or dealt with in some way that you would deal with a megalomaniacal, genocidal, tyrant, demon piece of shit. Or lots of them. Lots of them. No, there's been none of that that's happened. We're not even close. I don't think. I don't see any real signs of that, because the whole fucking world, it would appear, has been subjugated. And they're just slowly taking their time. They're developing technologies and using technologies right in front of your fucking face that are so scary it's not even funny. And they're developing technology that they're going to use on fucking humans. They're going to use it to harm, hurt, and control people. But everybody's still, on their Facebook, get up, go to work, pay your bills, pay your taxes. I just want my life to be normal again. But in case you haven't noticed, that's probably never likely going to be. And it's just going to get worse progressively, but slow enough that you're not going to recognize it enough to be able to actually be motivated to do anything about it. And when I look at the fact that the fighting age males on this earth, half the millennial generation, actually all the millennial generation, are considered fighting age, and the Z-Gens, and the condition collectively, not singling anybody out, not railing on you, I'm just saying I know what the system has done to the minds and the bodies and the cognition of those two generations through, well, the battery of vaccines that millennials and Z-Gens were subjected to. That's one layer of chemically affecting them. Then the indoctrination of the school systems, then the fucking religious indoctrination, then the rise of the fucking incel because of the ways that they grabbed and snared children's attentions that were in single-parent homes where there was nobody really around to otherwise influence the child in a good way. Therefore, you get the rise of the incel. This has all been done through social manipulation and social engineering, on top of these people having control of the medical system. They have control of the fucking government, or they can influence it with their money that they've controlled since before the days of the goddamn money changers. They've been influencing our children in our school systems, public school systems, in ways that most people don't realize, because they just blindly trust the government-run school systems. And then we wonder why we have the rise of children at very specific age ranges that are, by the way, when they're most fucking influenceable and impressionable, all of a sudden deciding that they want to change their sex. And when you look at this, and then you point, and then you tell them that this is wrong, and, well, they have these fragile fucking psychologies. I don't know what it is, where they've gotten people to be so goddamn psychologically fragile And then they've programmed them up, and then when you present information to people that are so psychologically fragile, rather than inquiring, they have fucking meltdowns. I mean, you see it rampant throughout these lefties, and I think that's the rise of the neurodivergent as well, because I think a lot of that behavior is coming out of a lot of neurodivergence that we see or think, look, or are normal people, but unfortunately, because of what happened to them as children that was beyond their control, they're neurodivergent, and these people are easy to manipulate in a lot of ways. Not all of them, but I guess it's a spectrum, and there's a certain portion of the spectrum where they're easy it's easy to pull their strings, they're easily influenceable, and they're easily weaponizable, and it's easy to trigger them into meltdowns. And then there's, I guess, just broken people that are also easily triggerable, but a lot of these Karen videos, they don't necessarily tell you what you're looking at or who you're looking at, the psychological profile, when you see all these crazy-ass fucking Karens out there, this crazy-ass toxic fucking behavior, even dudes with their Karen-like fucking behavior. And all of these things I'm talking about are a byproduct of what the enemy has done. It's influenced our minds, it's influenced our societies, it's fucking broken up the family unit, it's poisoned us with pornography and the toxic music industry. That's what this enemy controls. And then it's beaten everybody down, browbeat everybody, to the point where I've literally witnessed mankind being impotent in the face of an enemy that's revealing itself, that's using every underhanded tactic in the book that it can. Their motto is, by deception thou shalt do war. That kind of shit. Yet you can't get humans to move, and the rest of us that see this, that are bullhorning the truth about this stuff, or were unstopped because they realized nobody was hearing or cared. The rest of us just get to sit back and watch this slow-motion train wreck that we tried to prevent by telling the fucking people that had their fucking heads down, lapping from the trough of the mainstream media, oblivious and blissfully unaware of the true nature of what was unfolding all around them and the fucking goddamn enemy everywhere. Seriously, it's a zero-sum game. It always has been. It's just we've been living under the illusion, some under the delusion of, I don't know, living a happy, peaceful fucking life, growing and evolving generation by generation as a healthy species that does wonderful things because we are, or no, there's an enemy that the God that birthed you into this world knew was here and has sat back and allowed the asymmetric onslaught that has led to the complete and total degradation of the entirety of the human species, to the point where they don't even recognize the fucking enemy when it's showing itself to them, to their fucking faces, by their actions, by their deeds, and in every other fucking way you would need to see it. There are those that can see. There are those that can see when shown. And then there are those whose minds are so hammered shit because of the subversion, even when and the demoralization the enemy has inflicted upon their minds and perceptions, that there are those that, even when shown, cannot see. You've got to understand that they've embedded themselves in everything. Our governments, our military, they control it all. They control the money, the television, Hollywood, music industry, pornography industry, pharmaceutical industry, medical industry, fucking everything, all the news, all the media, fucking all the online big giants, they fucking control all of it. Their tentacles are everywhere. They control the chip makers, or Intel anyway. God knows who else. They control the chips that are going into the devices that they're giving out to the people, making them buy them, and then they're basically spy devices with a phone feature, and Wi-Fi or cellular signal built in. So they literally develop technologies to spy on you. They fucking develop the chips. They control the companies, or they're influencing the companies and what they're putting in the chips. It's not conspiracy theory. They're actually doing it. It's actually a known fucking thing, but since most people don't take the time to get out of their own box, to say something like that sounds so fucking over the top that, oh, that's crazy. And that's what the human mind will do. And I guess those are the dumb dolts. Those are the NPCs. Those are the ones that aren't capable. They're the ones that are not capable, I guess. I don't know. It's a shame. Because they look awful human. But I guess you can tell who the humans are when you see how they behave, when you see how they cognize. And that doesn't mean just like you. It's just, do they behave like they have, well, empathy, sympathy, compassion? Do they behave like they feel guilt, shame, and remorse, and they temper their behaviors with morality because of guilt, shame, and remorse, and all that other stuff? Do they behave, or no, they don't. Do they behave like NPCs that could step over you while flipping through their phone while you were cut and bleeding out in front of it? Yeah, we walk among a lot of those people that look just as human as you and me. Yep. And then we walk amongst a lot of humans that are so fucking evil and diabolical. And sometimes we call them, we call them cops, government agents, government workers. Yeah. The ones that are building or upholding or enforcing the fucking system of slavery that they're too stupid to realize that they're a part of, and they're the literal enforcers or upholders of the fucking system. The enemy has fucked everybody's mind. Literally, it's fucked everybody's mind, their beliefs, their perceptions. This is why I've been railing on about beliefs and perceptions. This is why I've been railing on about people analyzing their beliefs. This is why I've been talking about most of the things that I've been talking about over the last 5 or 6 years. Because these are the very things that your enemy is going after. All the things that I've been talking about the non-physical components of the human being. I mean, where do you think all this came from? I started to realize that these were not only major subcomponents of us, but fuck, when I started to look at it and analyze it, I started to realize that all these goddamn things were the places and spaces that they were literally attacking us because they knew we couldn't perceive and didn't perceive that they were attacking us there, that they were subtly, horribly manipulating us, influencing us, programming our minds, programming our perceptions and beliefs that are ultimately the driver of the human ass. So beliefs and perceptions will drive the human ass on top of, religious and political ideologies, and they control that as well. I mean, come on, people. And then most of us that have been seeing it and have been, saber rattling on the internet, trying to point shit out to people, our voices fall largely on deaf ears, if they even hit the ears at all. So it's been a basically fruitless effort and endeavor to try to wake up your fellow man. Yep. This enemy has so hideously affected us that it's turned brother against brother. Fucking family against family. Everything that you could think of to create an opposition, it's done it. It's destroyed families. It's destroyed minds. And people don't recognize this fucking enemy. And they've done something to the minds of humans that those of us that see are never going to get through to those that do not. Therefore, let me think of what that does. Think of that equation. When you see all this shit, you could literally teach people classes on this shit to the people who are waking up, and you can't fucking get through to them because they're not awake. You'll never be able to get through to them until something happens that cracks them open, and then they start asking questions and acquiring their own information to become aware of anything that's going on, to be willing to listen to other people that have actually gone before them to figure everything out that they don't fucking know. Yeah, they've done something to the minds of humans that makes it so that those of us who have who have awakened and woke up to all this shit and are knowledgeable on it, so that, we could teach people. The only people that we're going to be able to serve, so to speak, are those that have had something happen that has awakened them, that has caused them to ask questions that they never were asking before. Because without them themselves asking these questions, the answers to them are going to mean nothing. You can hand somebody a bucket full of answers. Buckets and buckets full of answers. Great answers, truths to questions that they're not asking. And to those people that you hand those buckets full of answers to, truth, it'll be nothing but words and meaninglessness. Because they're not asking the question. They could care less. It has no meaning to them. And while I wouldn't want anything that I've said to actually be true, unfortunately, basically everything I've said is true. I personally don't think anything can be done. I think it's going to have to get an awful lot worse before anybody's willing to do anything, and I think it's going to be too late by the time that actually happens. And I think ultimately they're going to turn this place into a hellscape that's 10 times worse than anything that anybody's awake that actually knows, that sees what's going on here now. I think it's going to get worse than that. No pushback, no Team Lightside support, no Team Lightside, so to speak. At least it's not there in a substantive enough way to make any kind of a meaningful impact of any kind. Yeah. So, just a nihilistic mind dump, because I think it's all pointless at this point. There's been so much damage done that recovery for mankind to get back to anything that would resemble respectable would take a few generations, and we would have to be able to do that without the enemy here permeating everything. And our recovery would have to incorporate many of the things that I've been talking about for years now as part of the base curriculum of being human in this fucking reality kind of thing, so that this kind of shit could never happen again. But since that's not going to happen, I guess it's just a waste of fucking breath to even talk about it. Anyway, God loves you people. Jesus is coming to save you, and Allah has 72 virgins for you.
This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is.